Outstanding. So what are we going to talk about this week? We're going to finish up the Havamal. Well, we're not going to finish it up, but we are going to talk about it. So I guess I'll put myself on there. Running up and down these stairs like an old man has its benefits, drawbacks too. Talking about friends. And as I was talking about last week, you can read through all of the Havamal. It's not going to tell you any promises of the afterlife. It's going to tell you how to embrace life now, which is a real important thing to consider. We have such a skewed perception of death still to this day, even with many of the pagan ideas. We've got a lot of work to do with getting our heads wrapped around this changing of our physical condition. But that's not what the Havamal is about. I think that's one of the reasons it was so easy for the church to co-opt the afterlife and make hell a bad goddess and the underworld, Niflheim and Helheim and all these places bad, is that much of this is about being able to live life well, which is something we struggle with today in the industrial age, in this digital revolution. When you're so comfortable and you can get all of the adrenaline rushes and excitement from the music we listen to, the TV we watch, and the social media we engage in, we get all these ancillary thrills without ever having to actually go out there and physically do it. We admire the men and women who do go engage in that challenge. But it's very difficult if you're trying to pay the bills and live life to enjoy that high adventure. This is going to change. I don't know how and I don't know when, but I don't think you can cage up the spirit of men that long without something finally giving way. Who knows what it'll look like? I couldn't tell you that. I couldn't venture a guess right now, but that's kind of the feeling I get. But stanza 46 in the Havamal, we're talking about dealing with friends, dealing with those people in your Innengarth, not everybody else that you know, but those people that are truly close to you. So is it with him whom thou wilt trust, and whose mind thou mayest not know. Laugh with him mayest thou, but speak not thy mind. Like gifts to his shall thou give. So that tells you how just to deal with people. And there's no need to, really look and break down the words and find it in Old High German or Old Norse and see if it means something different. Be decent with people. It's just that simple. Be decent with people. And we need to find a lot more of that within ourselves, especially within Asatru. We have a real high bar to measure up to because we've all decided to break away from the mainstream of what is, the God, country, and guts and all that bullshit. I'm all for the country and guts part, by the way. But how do we deal with people that we come across in daily life? Deal with them squarely. Because we may be the only example of a real, true, solid, upstanding, forthright heathen that they ever come across. Now we can all go out there and we can be a dick and we can be arrogant and we can say, well, you weaker, lesser men should figure it out. Or we could just simply say, hi, how you doing? It's just that simple. Some of us are going to eventually need to step up and take political office. Some of us are going to eventually need to step up and handle jobs of competence in the government. And that's just the reality of it. If our spirituality isn't conducive to a mindset that allows us to build success, whatever path we decide to choose, we're barking up the wrong tree. Because then the real possibility exists that we're simply following this for the feelings of righteous indignation that we get, and as an excuse for certain excesses of personal behavior that may not necessarily meet societal norms. Now, I don't mean the society as a whole, because I think all of those norms have been busted. but I mean the group of people, your town, your community, the people that you work with. There's a standard amongst people in every one of those. They all differ, and there's a different level, and there's a different set of acceptance, and there's a different set of requirements. Be a good man. Go ahead, tell him a joke, laugh with him. But you can't really walk into a lunchroom with a Fortune 100 company and start talking about what you think you understand about whatever conspiracy might be going on with this group of people over here or this group of people over here, because not everybody subscribes to that. Most people don't give a shit. They really don't care. And we could say that lends itself to some of the reasons that the foundations of much of what we consider to be civilization are not as strong as they should be. But we have to be very careful when we go down that road, because it lends itself to messianic overtones that we may not necessarily be able to follow through on. So when we begin to understand and comprehend these things, we got to ask ourselves, how does this help me build my life better? Well, the world's going to end sometime. You better prepare for it. Other people are making decisions that determine the quality of your life. It might be time to take some responsibility for your own existence. However you decide to do that, your choice. But it's something that we all need to be considering. Raising and growing your own food, generating your own electricity, having a well, all of those things. That's taking responsibility for our existence. If we're still enjoying the comfort of the world and we go into some public venue and start running our mouth about something we think we understand, when chances are we don't, which is about 90% of the people that I know in Asatru, that they get the idea in their head that this is bad and this is why, and they don't understand any of the economic controls and things of that nature that go with such an understanding. Most of them can tell you how to calculate the interest rate on a variable annuity, but they can tell you that somebody else controls it all. Well, let's fix that. But don't lead with the chin is what this is saying. Don't lead with the chin. Don't just walk in there with your chin stuck out like a boxer in the ring. Walking out there with your chin, you're going to get your head knocked off. Everybody that's been kicked off social media should be thinking about that right now. I've been saying it for years. I feel very good about saying it for years. Now it's happened. Young was I once and wandered alone, and not of the road I knew. We've all been green. We've all started out in the world thinking we knew a whole bunch and then come to find out we don't. Rich did I feel when a comrade I found, for man is man's delight. Loneliness, there's a difference between being alone and loneliness. If you can't be alone with yourself for a weekend, something's a little bit off. You might need to find out what that is. And I can't tell you what it is. If you want to talk with me about it, we might figure it out. But if you can't be alone with yourself for a weekend, there's some work to do. There's some thoughts we got to figure out, because most people are completely unaware of the pattern of their thoughts. Certain songs touch off this feeling or emotion. Certain movie scenes touch off this feeling or emotion. When we go to bed, we might think of this. Certain smells kick off, remind me of my grandma, things of those natures. And then suddenly something will remind me of something, man, I really shouldn't have done that to that person. So those thoughts are there. And they kind of rotate through our thinking process. And they're on autopilot, just like breathing or the beating of your heart or the movement of my hands when I decide to move them. Those thoughts create that feeling of loneliness, because now all of a sudden we begin to think, well, I'm alone because I did this and I've done that. And I really, nobody loves me, and I really don't deserve to be this, and I don't deserve that. Deserve's got nothing to fucking do with it. You're going to get what you earn, period. But some of the cure for that is rich did I feel when a comrade I found, for man is man's delight. There's nothing better in the world than having someone there with you. And I've said it many times, there's going to come a point in life, especially with that he-man woman haters club, everybody over taking that red pill and all that nonsense, that emotional cowardice. At a certain point, everybody gets old and things don't work the way they used to. And things begin to change and frailty sets in. And you're going to look around and you're going to see who's still standing there and who it, because the fact of the matter is our friends are going to die, or the people we love are going to die. But at the end of the road, when you look around and see the person standing next to you, just damn near 90% of that time, it's going to be your partner, your wife or your husband. They're the ones that are standing with you. And then you will, once you begin to grasp that concept, then you will feel rich. But going through life, it's important that men associate with other men. There's all kinds of aspects of things that go with that, and women should associate with women. That is not to say that it should be detrimental to the relationship at all. But I don't know what it means to be a woman, and a woman doesn't know what it means to be a man. We neither one of us have any kind of concept what it means to deal with the things we deal with in this world. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We have a clue. We can lend a solid ear. But when I talk to a brother that's been through some of the same things I have, yeah, now we feel rich. So there's some things to consider with all of that. We'll start out young, and sometimes we'll have to figure it out with a buddy, and sometimes we'll be alone, and sometimes we'll suffer loneliness. But yeah, I got all that rant from that little stanza because I've been alone and I've been lonely and I've looked around and seen no one there for me. And it was typically my fault. The lives of the brave and noble are best. Sorrows they seldom feel. But the coward fear of all things feels, and not gladly the niggard gives. And that's it's hard to add to that. The lives of the brave and the noble are best. Well, what is brave? Are we talking about brave on the battlefield? Are we talking about being able to stand up in a street fight? Or are we talking about the kind of courage it takes to love someone? Because that takes bravery too. That takes setting aside the preconditioned notions of every failed relationship before you and being brave enough to engage your heart in a relationship again. That's courage. First, you got to do it with yourself. You got to figure out why you screwed so many up. And once you do that, you're going to look at that woman and realize, oh man, every other woman has done the same goddamn thing. She's going to do it too. Well, keep talking about it. She probably will. Plain and simple. I see much of what the red pill community says, this understanding of women that they tout as being something that they really have a firm grasp on, a woman and the stages of her life and how to relate to her, and spin some plates, keep a couple on the side just in case things go wrong. It truly is a form of emotional cowardice, and it's been dressed up to look like, well, it's an alpha male, but it really is kind of an emotional cowardice. And because fear of, well, I don't ever want to have my heart broke again, drives that shallow ideology and does not foster within men the kind of courage that a noble mind would engage in. See, a noble mind is not going to be thinking about that kind of sketchy bullshit. If you're in the middle of your cups, or you're in the middle of a 5-day bender, or you've been awake for 4 to 5 days or 2 weeks, whatever, or, if you're in the middle of that, you're not thinking noble thoughts. You're thinking about how can I find and get some more? If you're in the middle of doing something wrong, our entire mindset begins to shift to a manner that is there to protect or justify our actions of wrongdoing. These are not noble thoughts. You know, everybody can word the argument in such a way that they come out looking like they did the right thing. Somebody takes a swing at you, you really have no choice. You do what you need to do to protect yourself and your family. But there's 1,000 interactions we have with people every day. Now, if we can keep from sharing our minds about everything we think we know and laughing a little bit with someone, we'll come out with that noble mindset. And it's like, you know, when I grew up and kind of in the country, my father and my grandparents, you just didn't talk about religion and politics, and everybody fucking got along. And if you didn't get along, it's because you truly didn't like that individual. They were, you know, an ass or something. But we didn't discuss those things. Everybody has the right to be wrong. You know, I don't get to pull out of thin air the righteous indignation to boost an ego because I see somebody doing something that, well, they can't do that. Who do they think they are? Who gives a shit? I don't have time for that nonsense. Is that a noble thought process when I'm boosting my ego, watching other people do something that, well, whatever floats your boat? The only thing I really have control over are the children that I raise. And do I teach them to have certain patterns of life that lead to success for the population, the mass population, or do I teach them to become a victim? These are the kind of things that stanza should be bringing to our mind. And this, you know, see, because the victim mindset, that's a coward. And they fear all things. The hell, both political parties have been doing it to everybody in the nation. Well, if you elect him, you're going to lose this, and you won't be quite as important. Well, if you elect that person, you side with these individuals, and we're going to consider you one of those, and you're going to lose this, and you probably lose that too, and it's going to cost you more money, and things are going to go wrong, and the world will be seen. Is that a noble mindset? Why should we be suspect to those kinds of manipulations? Because we're not engaging a noble mindset when it comes to those arguments. We're subscribing to passions that are played upon again and again and again. And not gladly the niggard gives. No, they sure don't. You know, it's a miserly touch. It's kind of what they're talking about there. You know, the brave and the noble, sorrows they seldom feed. They ain't got time to sit around and feed how woe is me, pour me another drink nonsense. They're out there engaging life to the fullest. They're brave enough to risk loving, which is one of the most painful experiences you can imagine if it fails, the loss of someone you love. There is nothing that fucking hurts worse. A dad, a mother, a child, a spouse, a lover. You lose that and break a heart. Ooh, man, that sucks. Nobody can fix it for you. Nobody can pat you on the back and say, well, you need to get over her, and you need to get over him by getting under somebody else, or all that horse shit. Yeah, you can rebound all you want to, but that's also not a noble mindset. A brave and a noble person is out there giving it their all. And if you give it your all and you come up short, yeah, you're going to have to deal with some things. But in dealing with those things, you're going to figure out how to become better. Pain is the touchstone of all personal growth. Very, very rarely will someone come along and say, my life is doing well. I think I'm going to begin an intense examination of self. Now, maybe if you're Socrates or Aristotle, because that's what you were known for, you might do it. But more often than not, most people, if they're comfortable, they're not going to do a damn thing. And such is the devil's playground. I hate to say it, but I said it. That's how it goes, guys. My garments once in a field I gave to a pair of carven poles. Heroes they seen when clothes they had, but the naked man is not. I struggle with that because I think of the homosexual parades where everybody's dressed up like a vagina or have a rubber penis on their head. I don't think they look like heroes. Perhaps we should give them our garments. To a pair of carven poles. Heroes they seemed when clothes they had, but the naked man is not. We have, as we move through this world, it's important to acquire the trappings of success. And we can cover ourselves in tattoos and have funny haircuts and wear clothes and get physically fit, but the trappings of success are every bit as much a thought process as they are a physical appearance. I think gone are the days of encouraging people to look like a rebel and be a rebel and look different and still succeed. As we acquire the trappings of success, there's a much bigger picture involved than just whether or not we look good. We are, at some point, the foundations of this spirituality are going to be such that they can justify a seat at the table at the Council of World Religions. Now, can we do that right now? It's going to be hard. Who's going to speak for us? Who exemplifies that? Who wears these trappings of success? Now, if a sumbit shows up wearing a Pope hat, I probably will have a come apart. I'm just going to tell you right now. But if he has the legitimate trappings of success, if we all begin to focus on that kind of stuff, there's a set standard for much of society. As much as we want to reject the modern world, we can only complain about rejecting the modern world within the confines of the safety bubble that it has created for us to bitch about it. So how are we going to do this? Are we going to continue to be the rebels without a cause, or the newfound spirituality with messianic overtones, always carrying secrets in our heads because we don't want to share what we truly think about something that we know somebody's an idiot about? Once we begin to celebrate the ability of individuals around us to be successful in what they're trying to do, things begin to change for us. That's just how it is. You show me your friends, and I'll show you your future in the next 5 to 10 years. Now take a look at your friends. Are they successful? Do they have those trappings? Do they seem like heroes? Do they have the garments that make them seem like the heroes of this world? Otherwise, we're standing there naked. And much of the time, when I see people out there talking about something they think they know, they look naked to me. They look like the uninspired and uninitiated individuals trying to discuss something to stir up the righteous indignation so everyone will believe that they are more right than usually me. That's just how it goes. On the hillside drear, the fir tree dies, all bootless its needles and bark. It is like a man whom no one loves. Why should his life be long? I'll tell you why. Because he's got a lesson to learn. He's got something to learn. When the fir tree dies, its needles, it sheds its needles and bark, and it becomes just a skeleton of a tree standing in the forest. And people that are alone feel the same way. Why should his life be long? Well, there's always something to figure out. There have been a lot of times I felt like that. Usually after a good bender, a good, quarter ounce a day binge. Why should my life be long? Well, maybe there's something to figure out. Maybe I'll give it 5 minutes. Let me give it 5 minutes to see what changes. Because no man is completely worthless. If you're trying to learn from his mistakes, you're going to figure something out. Now, you might not become some Hindu Swami, but you might be able to hold a job, raise a family, and love your children and grandchildren. And that's a pretty big start for a lot of people. Hotter than fire between false friends does friendship 5 days burns. When the 6th day comes, the fire cools, and ended is all the love. Hotter than fire. So you always meet people at events. You come across people around and they seem nice and they're pleasant and they're nice people and they're positive people and you want to hang around them and you want to learn from them. But then you realize, or they realize, hey, that dude's not quite as deep as I thought he was. Or, and sometimes, and you see it a lot in the nationalists. You see it a lot with the radical fringes. Particularly among the radical fringes, you don't quite understand the seriousness of this the way I do. So you're not quite as important as I am. Or they become intimidated because they do know more than you do. And I don't need you hanging around here talking to my old lady. That kind of nonsense. But for a couple of days, people will get along. There'll be a spark. There'll be a fire. Relationships are kind of like that, but it's usually 3 months. If you ever worked in a bar, you can watch the single people come in and they'll hook up with somebody and it'll go real great for about 3 months. And after that 3-month mark, they're alone again at another bar picking somebody else up. It's about the 3-month rule. Every bartender in the world could tell you about that one. So, no great thing needs a man to give. Oft little will purchase praise. With half a loaf and a half-filled cup, a friend full fast I made. So right on the trails of that hotter than fire between false friends does friendship 5 days burn, there comes another idea that says, how about not jumping in there like John Wayne with how important you are and why that person needs to be your friend? Hey, let me buy you a beer. How would you want? Can I get you a sandwich? Just some simple offering of friendship. And you don't need to follow it up with no fancy words or happy horse shit. Just good, nice to meet you. Maybe we can have a conversation later and build something solid. And that happens a lot with Asatru. You meet somebody that's wearing a hammer, and the next day, oh man, they're in Asatru. This is great. I'm not alone. It's really growing. It's thriving. And you realize that guy's a putz. And yes, I used that term purposely. Or there's somebody over here saying, oh, yeah, well, we really know about you. They say it about me all the time, and I could really give a shit. Ain't none of them offered me a half a loaf or a half-filled cup. They sure got lots to say about what I got to say. A little sand has a little sea, and small are the minds of men. Though all men are not equal in wisdom, yet half-wise only are all. So, we all got to share. I'm going to know some things that you might not know, but there's some things that you're going to know that I ain't got a fucking clue about, particularly if you're a woman. That's just the way it is. The only thing I can base this experience of what I'm talking about is my experience through life. I got 50 years of it. Been through a lot, lived a life of high adventure, seen my failings, fell on my face, succeeded more than most people ever will, fell on my face again. All of that requires growth. All of that requires a certain amount of dedication. So when this came along, I've said it many times, it's like that Megadeth song, Peace Sells. If there's a new way, I'm going to try it. And it better work this time. It better work. It's going to work because I'm working it. Half-wise only are all. I don't know about mining. I know how to build a tower. And there's other people that know more about building a tower. I know how to work in a power plant. There's other people that know more about working in a power plant. A little sand has a little sea. So while you're looking at this sand and it's wet, you have to understand that in between every one of those sand molecules, there's a water molecule that represents a vast ocean. And we're the same way. But to truly say, I have all the wisdom, perhaps when we make that transition to death, we might get some answers. I hope so. I mean, I believe so. But the word lie is right there in the middle of believe. So take it for what it is. A measure of wisdom each man shall have, but never too much to let him know. For the wise man's heart is seldom happy. If wisdom too great, he has one. You want to know why? Because when I look at people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and I hear what they're going through, they might as well be telling my life story. Because I can identify with fucking up. And I'm honest enough with myself to talk about it now. I'm honest enough with myself to share about it. I'm honest enough with myself to realize where that shortcoming came from. But if you have too much wisdom, you can look around and you can really drift off into a negative thought process. Well, so much for that. And there's no joy to life. You know, the Buddha was said to achieve enlightenment or nirvana sitting under a Bodhi tree, simply looking at a flower. When we're sitting here trying to be wise, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to question and answer well? Or are we trying to understand limbic resonance and be able to pass judgment on people? That's never a happy thing, because you'll see what's going to hurt them. I think I'd prefer to sit there and look at the flower. A measure of wisdom each man shall have, but never too much let him know. Let no man the fate before him see, for so is he freest from sorrow. Yeah. Because it's life is tough. That's just all there is to it. Life is tough. Everyone you know and love is going to die. And you're going to have to suffer setback after setback. You're going to have injuries. There's going to be sickness. There's going to be death. There's going to be pain. There's going to be sorrow. Life is a burdensome struggle. Things will happen to you that some people will only ever see in a movie. You will do things to people that some people only ever see in a fucking movie. If we were to know that as children, what would we think of ourselves? If we were to know the things that we would do as adults, as children, what would we think of ourselves? So to be free from sorrow means I probably need to be focusing on today and not be worrying about that. That right there is telling me that tomorrow's not here yet and ain't none of your damn business, buddy. You have to focus on what's right in front of you. Just like a child playing with a Hot Wheels car. Their sole purpose is the imagination of that Hot Wheels car zooming around. I guess at some point we begin to think that that's childish and we should put it away and not do that anymore. But if we could have that same kind of focus with the task we've chosen to have right in front of us, who knows how easily the trappings of success might gather about us. When I say trappings of success, I'm not talking about Lamborghinis and black tie affairs. It really boils down to the way you walk and the way you carry yourself and a look in your eye that is a happy, understanding kind of look. I think these are the trappings of success. And it manifests itself as confidence amongst individuals, not arrogance or ego, but confidence. And then all of a sudden you've got a built-in defense from the sorrow of understanding that tomorrow you might keel over and die. Well, I've been successful. I've lived a good life. I've loved hard. I've loved a lot. This is good today. A brand from a brand is kindled and burned, and fire from fire begotten. And man by his speech is known to men, and the stupid by their stillness. That's an interesting thing to think about, isn't it? A brand from a brand is kindled and burned, and fire from fire begotten. You know, when I take that candle and I light another candle, the candle that I use to light it, it's not diminished. No part of the flame from the original candle is taken away to make the other candle burn. You can light 1,000 candles with that. I think it's a Buddhist saying or some such nonsense, but You can light 1,000 candles with a single candle. A man's speech can inspire 1,000 men. He is not diminished. Nothing is taken from him. But the stupid who cannot inspire or share, the uninitiated who do not understand what they're talking about, you'll know them by their stillness. He must early go forth who fain the blood of the goods of another or goods of another would get. The wolf that lies idle shall win little meat, or the sleeping man success. And there's your first set of instructions on how to begin to acquire those trappings of success. He must early go forth whose workers are few, himself his work to seek. Much remains undone for the morning sleeper, for the swift is wealth half won. So the swift is wealth half won. I don't know how many times I've seen a small businessman think, okay, I got this plan. I'm going to start this business. Here's the deal. I'm going to hire all these people to do that. You need to do it your fucking self. If you're going to start a business and you're going to work harder than anybody else in that room, period, all the time, every day. When I started my tower company, and I've said it many times, I had a Toyota Corolla, I had a clogged catalytic converter. Somebody should barely go up a hill. I had a belt, I had some rope, and I sent out letters. I went through the phone book and found every company that I thought might even have a tower. And I sent them a letter showing my insurance, showing what the rate I charged. I charged 50 cents a foot to climb and relamp a tower, plus the price of the bulbs. And I didn't have a dime. I didn't have a dime to hire anybody. It took everything I had just to get that going. If I didn't get it going in a month, I failed. I was going down. I was going to lose my apartment. But I kept trying. I stayed on the phone. I made phone calls. I touched base. Hey, how you doing? I went to, business meetings and stuff. I got up off my butt instead of waiting on somebody else to do it for me. Like somebody, oh, well, I'll pay you this if you'll do this for me. And they're counting their money out like a fucking grandpa. Like, it just drives me insane. I got up and I went and did it and built my company. Period. And most people that want to start a business never understand that. Renee is understanding that right now because she's doing it. She's building the shit out of things and she's doing the work. But that wealth that I have won started because I got up and got busy. I didn't sit there and start watching Ricky Lake and Maury Povich and The Price is Right. No, I was on the phone on my computer, smiling and dialing, talking and walking, getting out there, going and doing the job. Within a week, I had a contract with the Grand River Dam Authority in Oklahoma to relamp their towers. And they have 52 line of sight facilities and they pay in 2 weeks. And they had 15 towers that needed to be relamped. Boom. The wealth was half won. From there, it moved on up. But it never stops. If you don't have many workers, you need to realize, and you're going to run a business, you're going to be the hardest working individual there. And your job is always going to be making sales, shipping, cheerleading, because you've got to motivate them employees to want to do what you know must be done. Sometimes $15, $20 an hour to get them to, well, they're going to need a little extra minute on my break. Well, lunch is over. But it's like a guy that scuffs his boots when he walks in somewhere, just dragging them old heels. If you see a guy come in your place like that, fire his ass because he's probably ain't worth a shit. At least that's my opinion. He might be one hell of a welder, but getting him to the point where he's got to weld, you probably need a cattle prod. Scuffing them boots. That shit just drives me insane, especially if I'm working as hard as I do. That right there is what we need to understand. We talk about it, but all over the place, I see my contemporaries. They're up at 4:30 in the morning. Jocko Willink, 4:30 on the move, 4:15 on the move. Tomorrow morning, I'll get up at 3:30 and go to work, 10-hour day, because I'm going to be successful, period. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do my Patreon, which if you haven't joined my Patreon, you should. I'm going to finish writing this book. I'm going to work. I'm going to do some more videos for my Patreon. I'm going to do this I'm going to work. I'm going to do what I need to do. Because nobody's going to do it for me. There's plenty of people that would love to take it from me. So I got to keep moving. Of seasoned shingles and strips of bark for the thatch, let one know his need, how much wood he must have for a month, or in half a year he will use. So now we're talking about understanding our role in environment. So we've gone from understanding how to deal with people to understanding how to deal with ourselves and what we need to strive for within ourselves, to now we're working with the world we live in. See how that kind of goes through there? See how that Havamal goes through these characteristics of the individual, how to deal with other people, how to grow yourself, what you need to know, how to build a business. It's all there. Really and truly, I think there isn't much that I couldn't come. If you came to me with a problem, there's not much in here that I probably couldn't find an answer for it. Not just this book, but all of them, the poetic and the prosaic. Yeah, every situation in life, there's an answer for it in there. People want to say, well, it's too heavily Christianized. How so? Can you tell me? Where is it Christianized at? Because I know exactly where it's Christianized at. And it ain't what you think. We'll discuss. If you haven't read Hell, the Sun-Facing Goddess, I encourage you to do it, because that's where I'll tell you about it. But of seasoned shingles and strips of bark for thatch, let one know his need, and how much of wood he must have for a month, or in half a year he will use. Budget your shit. A business that doesn't take inventory regularly will go broke, because they're going to pay inventory. They're going to pay taxes on that inventory. That represents dollars. That represents a cash value. And that cash value goes on the books. And you're going to pay taxes on it as if you have sold it. Now, there's some accountants that can get you around that for a lot of reasons, and they're good at what they do, and I'll let them have it. But that's basically what's going to happen. But if you don't know how much you need in this world, what are you going to be striving for? Do you even know where to begin? Taking care of our homes is one of the most important things we do. We've created this environment. I always say, if you build a home, if you're married to someone, your responsibility as a man is to create an environment where the woman you love is free to express the beauty of who she is. Even if it's a hut, you still got to know how to take care of the roof. It's hard for a woman to express the beauty of who she is sweeping a dirt floor, or having a leaky roof over her head when she's trying to sleep. Beauty sleep becomes essential, especially as you get older. I know I need a lot of it. I'm big on naps. Budget your shit. How much wood must he have for a month, or in a half a year he will use? That's the world we live in. We have to know how much resources to take out of the world we live in so we might thrive. Not just exist, but to thrive. Well, I got all this. Okay, well, there's an opportunity to get that much more. If I get that much more, this guy over here will pay me for it. Begin to see where we're going with that. He'll trade me a goat. Now I've got all these goats. I've got plenty of milk. Hey, things are coming together. And this is important, because there is a real impetus to dress up, to begin to look our best in front of for our spirituality and our faith. The trappings of success. Sometimes it breaks down to, well, you need to be wearing a suit. Well, that probably works for those people. That makes them feel it's important when you put on a suit. It is a basic trapping of business success. But it says right here, washed and fed to the council fair, but care not too much for thy clothes. Let none be ashamed of his shoes and hose, less steal of the steed he rides, though poor be the horse he has. So if you can be grateful for what you have right now, in front of everyone else who might be doing better, you got a mindset that will allow you to rise up. If you can be grateful for those kinds of things as you fare to the council where all of your contemporaries are and how good they're doing, and they really look at that silk brocade and look at the steel. Holy cow, that horse is magnificent. If you can be grateful for what you have at this point, a full belly and a way to get there and some clothes to keep you warm, you're in a good place to get started, ain't you? When the eagle comes to the ancient sea, he snaps and hangs his head. So is a man in the midst of a throng who few to speak for him finds. But if you've been a dick and it's a real sinking feeling to be sitting in a courtroom and realize that that prosecutor has all these people lined up against you and they're going to tell the truth and you're fucked. Unless you have a lot of money. Here's the other deal. We can walk around and be buttholes and be arrogant and be righteously indignant and be aware of the great conspiracies that threaten to destroy the foundations of the world. Look, man, all that shit ain't going to change. It's a matter of thing if that North Pole and South Pole keep flipping, because it'll all change. And none of that's going to matter. Or the sun throws off a CME or does a little micronova, or a comet crashes into the earth, or a real pandemic decides to go through like the bubonic plague. But if you can't be the kind of guy that can know these things and not be a dick about it all the time, and be able to talk to people, shake their hand, tell them a joke, laugh, be decent with trappings of success, and you go to the midst of a throng and find that few to speak for him finds, it's a real odd situation that the most powerful egos can flip on a dime and become the biggest victims and not once take responsibility for their actions, because it's their actions that result in having few people to speak for him. It's always our actions and our words, our thoughts provoke all of it. And then all we can do is hang our head. We become a victim. Nobody's speaking good of me anymore. Well, don't be a dick. Shit. To question and answer must all be ready who wish to be known as wise. Tell one thy thoughts, but beware of two. All know what is known to three. Can't break that down anymore. If you're going to go out there talking about being I'm a Gothi, or I'm a chieftain, or I'm a project manager, I am a car salesman, or you go to a job interview, you better, and apply for a job, you need to know how to question and answer well. I'm not talking about just some interaction with a divine. I'm talking about just getting a regular old job. They're going to ask you some questions. Can you question and answer well? Or are you going to say the dumbest thing imaginable? Look, there's about 10% of the population that's just dumber than a sack of cat meat. And they're always going to need somebody to take care of them, which is what a good, strong society can do. They can help those individuals that are truly in need of help. But for the most of us that are even paying attention to this, we got to know how to question and answer well, because we're going to be asked those kind of questions. And we may not be known as wise, but we might have a damn good job, and that's a start. Tell one thy thoughts, but beware of two. All know what is known to three. That ain't no shit. You need to keep a secret. Don't tell anybody. Keep it to yourself. That's just that plain and simple. That's why everybody that fools around gets caught, because two people know, and you're screwed. You can't just have a torrid affair and only one person know about it, because if you do, you're going to jail. If there's two people involved, you're going to get busted, period. It's all every fucking time. Yeah, if you think you're slick and going to get away with it, don't kid yourself. Your old lady probably knows. They just know. They got this sneaky shit about them. Yeah, if you think you're going to be slick by sneaking in and not closing any doors and kind of passing out on the couch because you might smell like somebody else, dude, everybody knows that fucking game. Everybody knows that. Everybody that's made it past 40 with two wives knows how that works. But two people know, you're screwed. You ain't going to get away with it. Why even try? Be legitimate. Engage that noble mindset. Don't do it. Be brave enough to risk loving the person you're with. It's just how it goes, guys. I will continue the rest of this next week and probably come up with something more amazing to say. Who knows? But I hope you enjoyed this. And since it is Sunday night, tomorrow is Monday. Everybody goes back to work. Go out there, grab it by the nose, and whip its ass. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Renee.
You're welcome.
More just a comment of thank you, you know.
Thanks, guy. I appreciate y'all being on here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. All y'all have a good night.
All right. Good night, guys.